Hi, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and thank you for joining me today. We're going to go over part 2 of the Excel meeting schedule. We have added a ton of features. The ability to delete a meeting attendee. We have also added a full email automation where we have the ability to automatically send emails with new meetings, change meetings, added attendees, status change of an attendee, meeting status changes, send either 1 hour, 1 day, 10 days after a meeting, also send before meeting. We have the ability as well, so we have a huge number of features to show you. I'm excited to get started, so let's do it. Alrighty, let's get started. We've got so many new features to go over in this. I've actually had to make a list of new features. The ability to add attendee by position, in which we can add specific technicians simply by the click of a button. The ability to we've added meeting status on this. We've added a location. We've added the ability to remove attendees on a single click. We've added the ability to remove attachments as well simply by adding an attachment and then go ahead and clicking the X, which will automatically remove the attachment. As we can see here, we've added email automation, which I showed you in the intro, where we can actually add 7 different types of automated emails for your meetings, which include a bevy of features, which we're going to go over. So grab a coffee, lock the doors, let's get started on this. All right, I wanted to go over the email automation, which is going to be a super duper feature. We have so many features just in this email automation. We want to send out emails based on lots of different options within our meeting scheduler. So I wanted to show you some of those. The first of which is the new meeting, and when we select on a new meeting, you have the ability to CC anybody. You have the ability to add your own customized subject as well as a customized message, and we have a whole lot of meeting variables. We can add the meeting name, we can add the scheduled date, the start time, location, duration, attendee name, meeting status, all attendees, if we want to add all of the attendees, and the agenda. So we've done that in here in the messages. We can create that customized email. We also have the ability to turn off or on the email. We have the ability to display or send. If we turn this off, it's going to send the emails without displaying them. And we have the ability to include the attachments. All we need to do is click Save Changes, and those changes get saved. When the meeting is changed, we also have the ability, if we make changes, but what type of change? If there's any type of change, we can select to turn on or off specific changes. So if we only want to send emails when we change a meeting date or meeting time, we can update that and click Save Changes, and it will only send emails to your attendees if either the meeting date or the meeting time have changed. So we have the ability to select that as well. We also have the ability to send an email when an attendee gets added. So if you add an attendee, it's going to get emailed. If that is active, it's going to send. Let me go ahead and show you what that is. So let's go ahead and say we add an attendee. Let's go ahead and pick this meeting here, and we want to add an attendee here. And then we go ahead and save those changes. Automatically, the email gets created for just that one attendee. So it's really, really a powerful feature on that. We have the ability to send an email based on attendee status change. So for example, if we have an attendee here we only have it on declined, let's say we want to create an email that anytime an attendee declines, we can set that email to send. So let's say we go ahead and set this to decline and then click Save Changes. That's going to create an email for this. We are sorry you're unable to attend the lunch. The meeting name is dynamic. The date is dynamic. And so we've all got that ability as well. So that's a huge feature. I wanted to show you that. Email automation continues with the meeting status change. If there's a meeting status changed, we can also send an email. For example, if a meeting gets canceled, we can send it to all attendees. So if this meeting gets canceled, well, let's go ahead and click on another meeting so we can have, all right, let's see. If this meeting gets canceled and then we click Save Changes, it's going to create an email. It's going to send that, hello, the status of the meeting is scheduled, has been changed to canceled. Okay, so we can send that based on a meeting status change as well. We also have the ability to send a scheduled meeting after, 1 hour after the meeting. We could do 8 hours, 9 hours, we can do 9 days. Either way, you have the ability to completely customize an email after the meeting as well as before the meeting. Let's say you want to remind your attendees maybe, let's say, 4 hours before a meeting. You can do that. Send them an automated email 4 hours before the meeting. Just save those changes and it'll send that. And that creates an email log. We have a complete log of emails where we can send them a log. Let's go ahead and make that general. And so we can see all of those. Okay, now we have the ability, we send before or send after meeting name. We can send on, we schedule our emails, and when then they're sent, we can send them. So that's going to be a really, really great feature. I'm excited to show you how that as well. We of course have our meeting list. We have our staff list. We've updated the position. We've got a position now where we can add based on the position. And so there's so many new features. I want to get started right away on how we did this because there's a lot to cover in this. So let's get started. Let's start off with the ability to delete attendees. I've added this ability here. So when we select on attendee, we have the ability to remove it. And all that we have done is added a small macro and this X icon right in the cell there. And we'll go ahead and show you how we did that. Into the Developers tab we go, and to Visual Basic, we're going to go right into it and go to the meeting schedule sheet. There's some new macros on this meeting schedule sheet which I wanted to show you, and of course that happens when we do selection change because we're actually selecting a cell and we're selecting column L. So let's go ahead and scroll down to that so we can find where we have added that. Actually it's M, so let's go ahead and look at that, and that's the Delete Attendee button, column M through 40. So we want to make sure that if the user selects anywhere between M11 and M40 and M and the target value does not equal empty. Why is that? Well, I don't want to show that X if there's nothing there, right? M is the column, right? So if there's nothing here, I don't want to show that X. There's no reason to delete nothing, but only if there's actual value in M. So we need to check both those. One, it's in column M starting at L11, moving all the way to 40, and we want to make sure there's a value in there. So in those cases, show that X. So that is the two conditions we want. Then with the Shapes button, the Delete Attendee button, this is the name I've given to that button. We want to do three things with that. The first thing, we want to display it. The second thing is we want to show it to the top and the left of N. Why N? Because that is the column after M. Why? Because I want to show it right at the beginning of column N, and then I want to bring it back to the left 16 pixels. That way if the column width changes, our X. So if we were to increase this a lot, right, and then we do it again, it's going to still show because it's actually placed right here and then it's moved over a few part. Oh, I just deleted it. There we go. Now we're done. Okay, so we have the ability to add a new one in here. It deletes so fast just like that, and then save those changes. Okay, let's bring that column back to the sides. So you see the idea is that it's going to automatically position itself. All right, so you see how that works. That's a great feature. Moving on, we've done the same thing for meeting attachments. Pretty much the same exact thing. Let's go ahead and locate a meeting that has attachments here. This one has an attachment. And now we've also created an S, and the same thing we're going to do. Does O contain a value? If it does, then show that little X, and we're going to go all the way through O23 all the way to O40 on selection change. Back into the code, let's go ahead and locate that. Here it is right here, O2340. With the Shapes button, we got the Add File button. Now this is going to show regardless if there's a file. We did this last time. However, O in the target row, if it's not empty, right, show the Delete button. So the button that gets to add the file, of course, if we want to add a file, it can be empty. But if it's not empty, we also want to show the Delete Attach button. The Delete Attach button, that's that icon with the X. The same thing, visible. And this time we're going to put it in column Q and bring it over 16. I know I'm moving fast, but we got so much to cover in this training. Q, and then bring it over to the left 16. Let's take a look at that one more time. Column Q, bringing it over, and then we're going to move that button over to the left. Size and properties. Let me go ahead and reset that. We want to make sure that the properties is move but don't size, because we don't want to size that. So that is how we do it. We got the add file. Now remember, when you see this from our last training, you'll want to hide that. That's only for our purposes. I've shown it in this case, but you'll want to change that font to white. So you got a nice looking meeting scheduler once we know everything. This shows our database row. This is the long file name. We went over that last time. Again, let's go ahead and add file. We can add any type of file just by clicking OK. And now once we have that, we'll see the X and we can delete it just like that. Save those changes, everything's set. All right, we've also added the ability to add by position, and that gives us the ability to quickly and easily add multiple staff by their position. Let's go ahead and show you that. We have a staff list here. If we were to add a new contact here, new staff here, and give it a new particular, let's say office tech here. And now we have a new position. If we go over to meeting scheduler and we take a look at the drop down list, we now see we have an updated office tech position. So if we select that and then click on the button there, it automatically adds our new John Frand name there right in there. So it's great. If we select a different position like technician and we add it, adds multiple of those that are technicians. Let's go ahead and show you how we did that. Back into the staff list, we'll see we have a unique position list, and this is an advanced filter based on just getting the unique positions based on this list right here. And so we do that, and then what we do is we run based on whatever the user has selected. We run an advanced filter based on the criteria position to get the names that we're going to add to that list. So for example, the last one we added was technician, and then these two names showed up. Now let's go into the VBA code and see just how that was done. All right, into the VBA we have our staff macros. These are just a few macros that we run from our staff, based on our staff, and we have a staff get unique positions here. We need to determine the last row of our staff list, and then we need to also know the last filter row, so we need to define those both as variables. With sheet 3, that's our staff list. We're going to take Y4 through Y9, and we're going to clear any previous unique positions. I want to clear that list. That is this list right here, Y4 through Y. I want to clear that list because we're going to bring in a new list. And then we're going to start out with our unique, and our unique starts in E2 all the way to the last. So that's all we're going to focus on is that list. And we're going to run an advanced filter, no criterion, just going to get that list and put it right there on the left side of the unique. So it's a very simple macro. Again, our last staff row, we need to determine that. We're going to use C. That'll get us our last staff row. We're going to clear any previous advanced filters on this sheet. We do run other advanced filters, so that means we need to delete the old criteria. We're not going to use any criteria in this advanced filter, so we want to make sure we delete any criteria that has been named on this specific sheet, and also the extract to be safe. So that just kind of clears out previous filters and allows us to do a new one. And so we're going to start out with C2 all the way through G, and the last staff row we're going to get copy to range Y3, and that basically just allows us to create Y3, includes our header name, and that'll get us the unique values. So when we run that, we do C2, we could do multiple ways. We could do just position, but we're going to run the all the way through G in the last row. Last row is defined on C because everybody's got a name, and that'll give us 15. So we're going to run that advanced filter, and then all we're going to do is, since only position is, we're going to use Y3 as our results, and that's going to put our unique list right here. And then what we have done is we've given it a dynamic name range under the formulas here, and then under the name manager. Take a look, and we have under, I believe it's staff position or positions here, and what we've done is given positions in a dynamic named range. And what that does is it's going to basically say starting at 4 all the way counting from Y4 through Y99. It's going to count those, count those, and it's going to say, okay, well, how many are here? And that's going to be our last row. That is a offset count A gets us our dynamic name range, so that our dynamic range will include positions, only those that exist there in this list. So once we have that position, we can go ahead and add that into our meeting scheduler, and we're going to say that in this data validation, that's going to be positions. That gives us, so that means as this grows, so does our drop-down list, a dynamic named range. So that's very, very helpful. And how do we get it to run? Well, we put this on sheet. I want that macro to run, right? Every time I want this macro to run, but I don't want it to run always, only when I exit the sheet. So when we click our sheet staff list, here's our sheet, and when we deactivate this, we're going to run that macro. So that means every time we leave the staff sheet, it's going to check to see if there's new unique values. So that way it only runs when we need it to. So that does that, and this is just target row. This is allows us to highlight the selected row and staff. We've been over that many times before, so we're not going to go over that. We have too many new things to cover. So that is how we get the unique positions, and that's how we add them to this list. Now let's go ahead and see how we get the advanced filter. Now we're going to show how do we get these names using our advanced filter automatically added to right here. So for example, if we want to do it again, let's say we add office tech, we can do it one more time. Just click there and it's going to add those technicians right there, just like that. Or office tech, it'll add one. We've only added one office tech. So how do we do that? Let's go into that macro, and we're going to go into the meeting macros here, and we're going to look at the macro add all by position. This macro has been assigned to that button. Now we're going to focus on with sheet 1, so all of this is with sheet 1. The first attendee row, last staff row, last filter row, we're going to define those as long. Position type, that's the current position type, as string. B2 equals true. Why does this? Well, because we're adding staff and we want B2 to be true, because we don't want anything else to happen. If you haven't seen the last video, we go over B2, so go over video number 1, and I'll include a link down below so we can understand why B2. But B2 says we're working with the meeting, so we don't want anything to happen, and we'll return B2 to false before the macro ends. So the position type is M9. M9 is the position. That is where the user will put in whatever position they want right here, M9. And then moving on, we also have the first attachment row is going to be the first available. We need to know, I need to know what the first available row is here, right? So we're going to basically say it's the last row plus 1. I need to know that first because we got to put some new attendees here, so we need to know the first available row. So we've set that as the first attendee row equals M41 endel XL up row plus 1. This is the last row with values, so when we add 1, it's going to be the first row with added. And then we're going to say if the first attendee row is less than 11, then it's 11. Just make sure if there's nothing else that's been added, we're going to set the first row at 11. That's the first row, just in case. The last staff row, now we need to focus on our advanced filter. On sheet 3 is where our staff is. We're going to get that last row, and then we're going to clear any previous advanced filters on sheet 3. So we need to do that, and we need to put in the position type on AC2. I'll go over this for you in a minute, and then we're going to run our advanced filter. So what we did here on sheet 3, which is our staff list, we've put in AC3. We've put in that position type, and then we first cleared out everything here, and then we put in the position type, and we cleared out any results that may have been there. And we're going to run our advanced filter so that all of the positions that are from this list that match this criteria are going to show up right here. So we do that. Now we're ready for our advanced filter. Sheet 3, C2, that includes our headers. G is the last column, the last staff row. So this is the main, this is all of our staff here. We're going to advanced filter. We want to copy that. The criteria is going to be all the way from A1 to E2, and this is just going to be our our position type here. And then we're going to copy that information all the way to range A3 to AE3. That's our copy, and we need unique true. So again, let's just go over that one more time. We're going to copy that to AA3 all the way to AE, and that means our results are going to show up right here. So then what we want to do is we want to get those results. I want to find the last row. In this case, it's 4. I want to just copy the names, and I want to copy them right over and put it down here, whatever the first available row is right here. So for example, if we add a lot of them, let's say managers, I think there's a few. We've got 4 managers, and they all get added right here. So when you look back over at the staff list, now you're going to see 4 in the results. So I'm going to start AA4. So basically what I want to say here in VBA, the first available row, M through the last, equals right here, AA through the last row. So that's what we're going to do in VBA. Next up, we're going to do that. So the last filter row, we need to figure out what the last row, the last results is. If the last row is less than 4, then go to no staff in case there's nothing that comes up. We don't want to show it. Now we're ready to copy over the data. M is where our contacts are in the meeting sheet, plus the first available row, and M and the first attachment row plus the last filter row minus 4. That gets us our exact position, our end position, equals sheet AA4 through A and last filter row. This copies over our filtered attendees. So that's, or staff names, either what you want to call them. And then what we want to do is I want to set tentative as default. You can set this to whatever you want, but we're going to use the same range except, you know, the column L, and we're going to set them to tentative. So just, you could set it to attending if you wanted to. So that, what that does is it sets all of these to tentative. You know, however many you've added, it sets them to tentative. So that is how we add the additional contacts by position. So it's a great little feature, and I wanted to show you that. The delete attendee, we also have that. Remember, we've added that, and all we've done in that case is we know what row. We know the row. Let's go ahead and unhide these because that's where our database row is. Home, go back to it and change that font to black so we can see it. Now, these, the reason these have no is because we have not saved it. As soon as we save those changes, I don't think I want to do that because it's going to create lots of emails. So let's add just one. Let's go ahead and add just that one that we got, Office Tech. Okay, there we go. Now click Add. It's going to add that one. And so this one doesn't have a database, right? So, but we know the database from the last training is located on row 115 of the database. Lisa Lopez, tentative, on our attendees database, going down to row 115 right here, Lisa Lopez. I want to delete that row, right? Basically, I want to delete that row. So if we go back into the meeting schedule and we click on there and we actually then delete that, it's going to clear that automatically. There we go. Now it's been removed. Okay, so that is how that works. And so that's how we delete the meeting list, the meeting schedule, a specific attendee. And now when we save change, we can delete this one too. Now this one doesn't have a database, so it's not going to delete. It's just going to, and then save those changes. And now we click on it, we only have 2 employees. So how do we do that? Let's go back into the delete attendee. That is the macro that's been assigned to that small X button. We're going to define the attendee row and the active row, the current row, as long with sheet 1. The active row equals active cell row. We're going to check if N is where our database number is located, and the active does not equal empty. That means it already has been added to the database. We want to then attendee row equals an active cell database row. So what this is going to do is the attendee row equals N and the active cell row. That gives us our attendee database row. And then we're going to say sheet 4 attendee row entire delete. Now you could just clear those contents if you wanted to. You may not want to delete the row because that'll offset other rows if that creates an issue, but otherwise we can delete the entire row to keep our database from growing too large if we want to delete it. And so all that does is in sheet 4, which is our attendee database, the attendee row and the entire row delete. And then we also want to clear the contents L, which is our status, M, which is our name, and N, which is our row. If there's any, I want to clear those contents. So that's how we delete that. We do the same thing for attachments. We just take the determined if we have a database row for attachments and delete the same exact thing for entire row. So the attachments is exactly the same. I'm moving fast because we haven't even covered emails, and emails is, we're already, you know, almost 30 minutes into this, and we haven't even covered emails. So We've got a lot to cover. So let's go ahead, and that's how we covered those. Now we've gone over the new features. We've gone over added by position. We haven't gone over meeting status, but that's just a drop-down list that I've added, so that's not really a big deal. We've added location, which that's kind of easy, simple. You can see that. It's just a drop-down list and additional data. Remove attendee, we've covered. Remove attachments, we've covered. Now we're on to email automation. This is the big one. Let's go ahead and go over that. Now I've shown you basically what we have. We have 7 different email automations. And what I've done is when you select a specific email automation, the information shows up there. And we have some hidden database mapping, which you may have seen me do before. Let's go ahead and hide that. These are our column. These are our database mapping, and let's go ahead and hide that. And so I can see why I've changed the font number. Okay, so now you see B8 is mapped to the here, Drew. So we have different variables. We have a lot of variables that cover each email. This first column covers it whether it's active or not. And why is B8? B8 is our linked cell. B8 is linked to this dropdown. So when we click here, you'll see email active false, right? So that is our link. So each option is a link. You see, now we have display emails. This tells us whether if it's not selected, it's going to send the email without displaying, and whether we want to include the attachments. So these 3 options are going to be available for every email regardless. They're always going to be at the top. Now when we save those, if we click here and we save those, I want this false to come to this true, right? So I know when we save those changes, automatically goes to false. Now I've added additional conditional formatting. If this is false, it's going to be in gray because that means this trigger is not active. Nothing will happen. So that means every time we create a new meeting, nothing's going to go out because it's not active. So I can create a new meeting, and let's just call this breakfast. And we'll give it a start time of 3:15 a.m. It's going to be very early at breakfast. Location Starbucks. Okay, we can give it a meeting date in the future. Let's go ahead and slide on over here and reduce that a little bit. And let's call it on the 29th of August, and the duration will be 1 hour and 15 minutes pending. Save the meeting, nothing goes out, right? No emails created. However, if we go ahead and activate that and then save those changes, and now we have schedule a new meeting. All right, new meeting. Let's go ahead and say lunch, and we'll give it a start time of, let's say, 1 o'clock a.m. and that's kind of a early lunch. How about 3 p.m. and location is office lunch. And meeting date of, let's go ahead and take a look on the 16th, and the duration of 1 hour. And then we'll go ahead and add some attendees and then save the meeting. And now you see the meeting gets created there. And we haven't assigned an email address to this particular John friend. That's why no emails coming. If we did, we'll set up. It would show up. Okay, so that is how. So now you see the new meeting, and this new meeting contains all the variables. August 15th, 3 p.m. We have the location at the office, and it's approximately 1 hour. The agenda for the lunch, we haven't assigned an agenda. If we did, it would show up below, and we have set all of the attendees. And so we can say, let's create a new meeting and look at what other possibilities could be also had. Let's call this dinner meeting, and we'll give it a start time of, let's say, 6 o'clock p.m. Okay, and the location as office also. Okay, and the meeting date, let's go ahead and assign that to the 8th, and the duration of, let's take a look, put a duration of 1 hour and 15 minutes, and we'll assign them. Let's say we want to assign different types, let's say technicians, and click there. Now we've got 2 different people saved. Let's give it agenda, dinner with friends. All right, and now save the meeting. And now all of a sudden you'll see 2 different emails get created, and it has, you see the list of attendees because we can add that as well. We have our agenda here and our time, and now you look, you see it's 1 hour and 15 hours. If it's more than hours, it's going to show hours. If it's less, it's going to show minutes, and I'll show you how we did that. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. So we have different, let's go ahead and go to the new meeting, and this is just, a little bit small. Okay, so we can see the database row numbers. Let's go into the email automation. So now you have seen this. We're going to move fast today, and because we got so much to cover, and I'll include some in part 3 as well. So now we have, as long as it's active, it's going to show. This will display. I'm going to keep this on because I want to show you all the emails get created. Once you have yours and you set it on automation, you will not want to display every email. You'll just uncheck that and click save, and then it's going to just send the emails without displaying them. And if you want to include attachments or exclude them, you can use this button here. We have all these variables: meeting name, scheduled date, start time. So you see I've included those in this. You can use those either in the subject or either in the message directly. So and that's the same for each of those features. And now let's go ahead and go into the new meeting, going back into the VBA. Let's take a look at this. Now when we save or update a meeting, let's go ahead and click on, we had this macro before, but we've added some to that. So we have here, if B5 is true, we know it's a new meeting, right? So we've also, in the last macro, we've set these items, meeting row, meeting ID, but also we want to know if sheet 5 D21 is true, then why is that? Let's take a look at sheet 5. Sheet 5 is our email automation. So let's go ahead and go back here. Sheet 5, D, right? 21. Oh, that's our email active. If this is true, that means new meetings are active, right? So D21, new meeting active. So that means, yes, send the email because the user has chosen to send emails. So we're going to do that. D25, if new meeting email is active. Okay, good. So we're going to use that. And now sheet 5 B30 equals 2. Why is this? This sets the row. This sets the email type. I want to know, this sets the email trigger. We're going to use this email sheet 5. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Back into sheet 5, which is our email automation. We're going to set this send email row because once I know what row, 21, right, for our new emails, I then know what the subject is and I know what the message is. I know all of the information because I know what row. So this send email row is very important because we're going to use this for many of the emails, but I need to know what row because I need to know what subject and what message to send, and I need to know all these other, what CC, right? So the row of the email is very important, especially when we have multiple templates, multiple mentions. We need to know what row. So we set the row in B30. That's always going to be the case. So we set the row to B30, and then we're going to run this macro, email selected meeting. This macro will run with multiple types of emails, but we already, because we've set the new meeting row, we know which email. So let's go ahead and visit the email selected macro. Take a look at that. And that's located in email set types right here. So if we scroll down, we'll see email selected meeting right here. Let's go over that macro. We're gonna define, we need to know the last attachment row, the last attendee row. So we need to get all the information for the email. So we need to define these, we need to get the attachments and the attendees, all of that. So we need to determine the last attendee row and the last attachment row. Again, we're going to use the selected meeting. So we're going to use the details here. I need to know the last row for attendees, and if there is any attachments, I need to know the last row because we need to pull all of these, and we need to pull all of these, so we need to get those last rows. That's important. And then attendee email row, this is the row. We need to set those rows in so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull, let's go ahead and, in the email automation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all of the attendees and I'm going to put them right here. And then automatically through index match, their emails will show up automatically. So if we put Nina Smith in here, again, her email shows up automatically based on this index match. And we're going to use index, the staff emails, the matching. We're going to match, what are we matching? Whatever's in the row 46, whatever's in row A, we're going to match it with staff. So this index match automatically pulls up their emails. So that's going to be helpful. And if there's nothing, we've surrounded it in an if error is nothing. So if there's an error, just nothing shows up. So that's important. So we need to put the staff here, and we need to put the attachments here. And this will be the long the attachments won't be the file name, it's going to be the long file path of that attachment so that we can pull those into the email. I need to get the emails too because I need to know who to send them to. So we're putting the staff here. So the first row is going to be 44 of the staff. The first row of the attachment is going to be 76. So we've set those in our code right here. Let's go ahead and close that out and go back into the code. And so we've set those. And now with sheet 5, this is our emails. We're going to clear any previous email values. All the email details that we're going to send we're going to be putting in here. So we're going to put the scheduled date, the meeting name, all of the email details are going to go right here. All the attendees, so I've got two. I've got all the attendees here because we want them in one text file as well, because in case we send them an email that says all attendees, we can put those in there. All right. And we have the name. So we're going to clear all this out so that we can put the new information right there. So back into the code, we clear that out. And it says also if B30 equals 24, I'll show you this a little bit. Clear single attendee on none. I'll show you this later. This is for another email. Not to worry about that now. So again, we're going to take all of the information from our sheet 1, the meeting information. This is all M5 is a meeting name, date. So this is all from our meeting sheet, and we're going to put it right in the specific corresponding cells here. So that's going to give us all of our meeting data. So we put that all in. And next we're going to get all or only new attendees. So if there's new attendees or all of them, we're going to get that. If the last attendee row is less than 11 or B30, then go to no attendees. And I'll show you, this is for this is for when attendees get updated. B30 is 24, so we're going to show you that in a little bit because that's for a different email. All right, we're going to run a loop from the 11 to the last attendee row. We're going to run this loop for all of the attendees right here. And we're going to do a few different conditions. We're going to say if B30 does not equal 23. 23 is for a specific email. This is only for new attendees. So that specific is if B23. In this case, it's not. It's 21. It's 21. So we're going to continue with that. B40 value equals B40 value and sheet 1. Why do we say that? This adds all of the attendees to whatever's in a single cell. I need that for so B40, if you remember correctly, that includes all of our attendees. B40 is going to include all of our attendees in one cell as a text file so we can paste that into the email. So we want that, and we also want them here and here. So we need to put them in both places. So we're going to do that through Excel. So we put them in B40, but we add to anything else. And also A and the attendee email row equals sheet 1 and the attendee row. So this adds the attendee name. And then we need to increase the attendee email row. We need to increase, right? So we put one in, then we increase. It starts at 44, we put one in, and then we go to the next one. We increase the attendee row. And if there's more, we just keep increasing that row as we add our attendees down here. And we also add them here, so for every attendee. So that's how that works. So we just add them there because when we email them, we're going to pull this information when we email. So we want to put it in there for now. So that's all. And we run that loop, and we do the same thing for attachments. We also run the loop. Let me get out of there. We also go through the same thing with attachments. If the last attachment was less than 23, of course, then there's no attachments. But if there is attachments, we want to run the loop. And we're going to pull the attachments A from R. Why R? R in our meeting row is our full. R contains our full. Let's go pull up. Okay, this one has attachments. Now you see R is where the full path is contained. I want that full path in the email log. I want the full path. So when we save those changes, I want the full path. So that is why that works. And so that's why we want that full path right here. Here we go. So, okay. So that's what I want when there is attachments. That's what I want to add. All right. Next up, moving along in our code, that is how now we're going to run. Now we've added all the information that we needed. We added all. Let's go ahead and select on a meeting with lots of attendees. All right, this dinner meeting has it covered. We've got 4 different staff and email automation. So it's going to take this dinner meeting, it's going to add all this information into our email. It's going to pull each one of these and send them emails, and that's how it's going to work. So let's go ahead and take a look at that macro. Send email macro is located in the email send here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one. We are going to set our meeting email row, meeting name, location, duration, all as strings. I want those as strings. Those are information that we're going to be adding in the email, as well as the email address, subject, message. Those are strings. The last email address row, I need to know that, so we're going to define those, as well as the email address row, last attachment row, so we can pull all the addresses. We need to run through all of the email attachments as well as the addresses. Now the scheduled date is date, and we're going to start out. We need to create objects for both Outlook application and Outlook mail. We're going to set the Outlook to create an Outlook application. Now with sheet 5, we're going to calculate that. That makes sure that our email addresses, remember our email addresses are based on formula. So we need to calculate that, because if it's in the middle of some stop code, we want to make sure to calculate these so that the email addresses show up. That's why we have calculated. We'll only calculate sheet 5. The meeting email row, we need to define that. Remember, that's the trigger row. That's in B30. The meeting name we've put in B32. So we're going to define all of these things into text strings. Meeting status, agenda, all attendees. Remember, that's in B40. And the CC email is an L in the email row. L in the email row. Right? Let's look in our email automation. Column L is our CC email. That's located in L, and we know what row. We know what row because it's row 21 for the new ones. So we've covered that. All right, next up now we need to know whether we set duration to hours or minutes. Well, 1 hour is 0.041666. So if it's less than that, then the duration, we're going to set the format equals to minutes, right? We're going to set the format. However, duration, if it's greater than that, it's going to be set to hours. So this way, if there's a 15, 30, or 45-minute meeting, it's going to say your 45-minute meeting, this meeting should last 45 minutes. However, if it's more than an hour or more, it's going to say this meeting will last 1.5 hours or 1 hour and 30 minutes or something. It's going to use hours. So we use this through conditional formatting, and we use this for text formatting. We use an application worksheet function text just as you would if it was a formula. And you could use format, but not everybody has that library, so we're going to use text, which everybody has. Minutes, so this is a format, a cell format. So we use that as well in here. All right, next up, so that's how we format duration differently based on the length of the duration of the meeting. The last email address row is in A74. That's where we put our email addresses. If the last email address is less than 44, then go to no email. Our email addresses start on row 44, so if it's less than that, means we have no emails. So we need to make sure that there are emails. Next up, we're going to create a loop, right? I want to create a loop. For every email, I want to send a new email. So we must start this loop, 44 to the last email address. Again, let's go over that again. 44, starting at 44, go to the last email address. In this case, it's 45. So for each one of these, we're going to send a new email. Next up, so we create that loop, and then within that loop, we do our email. We create our email. The first thing is we want to customize our subject equals H and the email meeting row. Why H and the message is I? Why is that? Because column H is where our subject is located. Column I is where our located message. We know our row. So now we know the subject, and now we know the message. So we can pull those values, and so here we go. Email, CC. Let's see, that's not the CC, that's the subject. Subject, there we go. Okay. And so now we have the subject and we have the message, email message and the subject. We've got both of those defined. And we have the attendee name, it's column A, and the email address is column B. So we have all of that information. Remember? So now that we've got that defined, now we can replace our values. We've been over this before, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace anywhere they put scheduled date, I'm going to replace it with the actual scheduled date. Anywhere they put start time, I'm going to replace it with the actual start time. We're going to do all of this for all those values for both the subject and the message, replacing it. So that way, when we have our email template, anywhere they put meeting name, it's going to be replaced with the actual meeting name. Anywhere they put all attendees is going to be replaced with the actual all attendees. So that is how we do that through these replace. Next up, we're ready to send the Outlook email. Okay, so to, we know the email address, CC, we know the CC, subject, embed. Good, we're good there. Now we need to add the attachments. So first of all, we need to know, should we send the attachments? Maybe they've not selected, maybe they don't want to send the attachment, maybe they've unselected this. But where is that located? It's located in column K, include attachments. So if this is true, K and the row is true, then yes. If it's false, then don't send. So we need to check that first. If K and the value equals true, right, and sheet 5 A76 does not equal empty. What is A76? A76 is the first row of our attachments. First row, that would be the first place any attachments, right here, A76. So if this is blank, that means we have no attachments. So we want to send it. If it's not blank, then we need to run a loop from the first to the last and add all of those attachments. So if both of those conditions are true, K and the meeting row is true, and sheet 5 and the A76 does not equal empty, then then we have to get the last attachment row, and then run our loop. For each attachment, we need to say attachments add sheet 5A and the attachment. This basically adds that long full file name to the email. So it adds each of those. So it runs that loop and adds all the attachments if both of those conditions are true. And it runs that. And next we're going to say if J and the email equal true, then display. Remember, we need to know whether we display the email or send it. And that's located in column J. It's saved in column J in our email. Let's take a look at that. Column J. True, true, true. They're all true. But if they're false, if this is false, it's going to send the email without displaying it. Right now, for our purposes, we want to show the email so I can show you. But for you, you'll probably set those to false. And we can do that easily just by unselecting here, display, and then saving those changes. That's all you would need to do. So we do need to run that last check. If J and meeting row equals true, then display, else send it. That's it. That's how we send our emails. That's how we send the new email. Let's go over some of the others. Although they're similar, most of the others use this macro, but there's some other small differentiations. And let's go over those. All right, moving on to our next email automation, that would be the meeting changed. And on this particular one, you've got a lot of options here. In fact, we can send emails on specific changes or not specific changes. For example, if we only want to send meeting emails based on the meeting change for, say, meeting date and meeting time, but not duration and not location, we can do that clicking Save Changes. And then we go ahead and when we change a meeting, let's go ahead and choose a meeting with just 2 people or 1 people. And when we do that, we can then set, when we make a change, for example, let's say we change a start time and then click Save Changes, automatically that is going to create an email with those changes. And we have, there has been a change to the breakfast meeting. Please notate the following meeting updates, and we can include all the meeting information as well as so we can include that. So it's a dynamic email based on the type of change that was made to a meeting. So, but if you wanted to change, so in fact, if we change the name, it's not going to. So, but if we change breakfast and we change that to meeting, right, and then we click save, it's not going to send it. However, if we update that meeting change to include the name and then click Save Changes, now let's go ahead and make the change again, and we'll see that it does send out an email. Now when we click Save Changes, an email is going to be created because we've set meeting and we want that email set based on the name. So it's very, very dynamic. And let's go ahead and show you how that is done. And first of all, we want to know when we've made a change to one of these values. I want to know when a user has made the change. So we've actually set that up in the meeting change field. So as soon as a user changes something, this goes to true. For example, if we change a time to 11 a.m., automatically start time is true. So we've done that through VBA just on the change. Let's go ahead and look at that. And on the worksheet change, we're going to find that here. We've done that on meeting fields changed here. So we're going to say if there's any change through M5 through M7, P5 through P6, then what? Then the target column equals 13 and change B in the target column +6. So basically this code allows us to automatically set true to these fields right here in B. So based on the column and based on the row, so this is row 11 and B11, right? So we know that this is column, right? So if we click the column equals column. So how do we get from column to row? So it's -2, so we can know it. We know that this is row 5. So through math, we can figure out what was changed. So when we change breakfast meeting, it automatically comes true to B11. So basically that code allows us. Then what we do is I check this against our email log to see if we should send it or not. Here's our meeting change. Here. Now this is based on our selected meeting change. Meeting change, name is true, date is true, time is true, duration is false, location is false. So that means all of these, you can see they're all set. So we know if we're going to make a change. So by comparing this true and this true, we know whether to send the email or not. And you can study this code. I know I'm moving fast over it, but basically that's the idea. When we save those changes, we know what we put in a check. And I'll show you that when we save those changes. And that's for an existing meeting. So let's go ahead and look at meeting save update and go back into, this is for new meeting, okay? This is for existing meeting, right? So here we go. Now we're going to say email meeting change D22 if email meeting change D22 is true. Why D22? Let's look at that sheet 5. Let's close that out. Sheet 5 D22, that's the meeting change. So we need to make sure that's true first before we run the macro. Now we're going to run a macro called meeting change. Email meeting change, and that will be in the email set types. Let's look for that. Email meeting change here, meeting change here, meeting change here. Here we do our comparison, right? We need to know if sheet 5 B23 is true and sheet 1 equals true. That means yes, we have said if there's a change to the meeting name and there has been a change to the meeting name, right? We've set yes, we want, if this is true, it means we want to send email when the meeting name is changed. And the meeting name is changed, then send the email. Or, of course, any one of these options are true, send the email. If none of these are true, then just exit the sub, right? We're not going to do anything else. However, send email, go to send email. Send email is what here? Sets B30 to 22. Why are we doing that? 22 is our trigger row for email. 22, right? B30, 22, 22, B22. I need to know that puts 22 right here in the B30. That's going to tell us which email to send. And then we're going to run, again, our email selected meeting. We went over this macro before, but the difference is now we're telling it 22. Before it was 21, right? New meetings are 21. Changes are 22. So new meetings 21. Changes are 22. So we know which email to send. Then again, we get all the information and we send the emails. But this time, because this is 22, it knows to send this subject and this message, right? And this CC. So we know. That's how we know. So that is how we run it based on change. And we do pretty much the same thing for meeting status change. Let's go over meeting status. Now, if the meeting status changes, let's go ahead and take a look at that. We're going to skip to meeting status change, and then we'll come back to these two because meeting status change is very similar. Now, okay, I've got a meeting status change. I only want to send emails. I've got it active, but I only want to send it on canceled, right? If a meeting is canceled, all right, let's put on hold as well. Okay, on hold and save changes. If a meeting is canceled or on hold, I want to send an update. But if it's completed or pending, I don't want to send anything to those people. So let's go back into the meeting schedule. We've got our meeting here to David Davis. And let's go ahead and say, now let's set it to pending. And then we're going to save it. Nothing's going to happen. No email is going to send because we don't. But what if we click cancel? Now we save changes. Now an email is going to get created because we have it set for canceled. The breakfast meeting has been changed to canceled. this is all of our email details. Again, we could do the same thing for on hold because we've set on hold already. On hold, save changes. Again, it's going to send that email because both on hold and canceled have been checked in our meeting automation, both canceled and on hold. So we do the same thing, meeting status, true, true. So we know true, true if it's both of these are going to send emails, but if the meeting changes to either of these status, we will not send an email. Back into the meeting schedule, again, under meeting status, we're going to check that. We're going to check that in our VBA code. Let's go ahead and take a look at that as well. Under meeting status change, we have B17 and sheet 1, B17, B18, B all the way through B20. Let's look at that. 17 through 20, false, false. We did not make a change, but what if we make a change to on hold? That goes to true, again with the same type of code that we used before. Canceled, let's go to canceled now. Canceled is going to show up as true, right? So we know if this is true and this is true, then send the email, right? Both of those have to be true. So we did that same thing in the code. In this case, pending status change canceled. B19 on sheet 5 and B19 on sheet 1. Both of those things. In this case, B19 on sheet 1, sheet 5, B19 on sheet 1. So B19 sheet 1, B19 sheet 5. So if both of those are true, then send the email. That's how we do that. And then we do that and the same thing. Email the selected meeting. We went through that macro before, but this time we're going to set B30 to 25. 25 is the specific row for the meeting status string. B25, that is the meeting status row. Okay. And let's go ahead and unhide these. That's going to help us. I think I did too much this week. I got too much to cover. I mean, it was a lot. So this tells us our rows. When we map it, right? When we save it, this is a column number. These are column numbers. Let's look at the columns. Equals column. We use this for mapping. All the way over here. Bring it all the way over here. So we look. We see. On hold status 19. So when we save it, we know where to put it. 19 here. That is our column mapping. We use that. And you can hide this. Just use the green font to hide it. I'll keep it visible so you remember, but these are our columns. So that's how we map the database. I don't think we're going to have time to cover it today. We're way overboard. But I'll cover it in next week a little bit as well. So that's mapping. We're going to do a part 3 on this. And part 3, we're going to include automatic links for accepting and declining emails, which will automatically come back into Excel. We may also do an Outlook meeting integration if you like. So we've got a lot to add. This email automation is important. Okay, so we've gone over that. And now, so that mapping helps us when we save and load these specific email automations. It tells us what column and what row to put these in. So that's helpful. These are the cells, the linked cells, for example. E4 is our trigger, so we know where to save that. Quantity is only used for send after, send before. And we use conditional formatting to display that. So you can see when we click send after, send before, we have the days and the after meeting displayed, but when we click another email, nothing is displayed, and we use conditional formatting. Let's go ahead and go into that. Home, and then conditional formatting and manage rules. We'll take a look, and we can see that in that rule, we have a rule that says if it includes send, if we search for the word send, and if there's an error is true, then cover it up, right? That means if it's not found, that means there's an error, then fill the form in, fill it in with green. We will also add a font color that's the same color, and we're going to clear all the borders around it. So that means when send, the word send is not found in right here in E4. But in this case, send is found. In this case, send is found. So, but in these cases, we want it covered up. So we use conditional formatting to do that. All right. Next up, we also have before meeting and after meeting. You see this text changes, and that's just a simple formula. And it says if E4 equals send before meeting, then use before meeting, otherwise after meeting. So that text allows us to just change the text based on the value in the trigger. All right, let's go back to our multiple emails, and we have attendee added. And in this case, I want to send an email based on an attendee that gets added to an existing meeting. So we have this on, it's true, and so it's ready and active. So that means, let's say we add an attendee to this meeting here. I want to send that attendee a meeting, so we just click on the Save Changes, and then an email gets created for that specific. It says, we're requesting your attendance. So this, you have been invited to our breakfast meeting. In this case, this email gets created based on a new attendance. So that's really helpful. If somebody gets added to a meeting, we can show that again. Let's go ahead and add a new specific attendee, and so we can say, let's say we add Lisa, and click Save Changes, and now we see that Lisa gets added and an email gets created for Lisa as well. So it's very helpful for new attendees to existing meetings. We can create an email for them as well, and that's done through this here. This is our row 23 attendee added. If this is on, we can display the emails. So let's go ahead and see how that's created. When we click save, though, that's what happens. Save or update the meeting back into that macro. All right, so let's go back into the Save Update meeting and take a look here. For the new attendees, you'll see that we have added some additional comments. It says check for new attendees and run macro. Both are true. Sheet 5 D23 is true. Remember, this is our trigger, and make sure it's true. D23 must be true. Attendee added. So that's got to be true there. 23 is true. Then in that case, sheet 5 B30 was setting our email automation row B30 23, and then we're going to email our selected meeting. Now if you look back in this macro, we're going to show you how that it emails only new attendees. So let's go ahead and take a look at that in our email set types. Back in our email selected meeting here, we have says if range B30 does not equal 23, then on add all attendees, right? But in this case, else if sheet 1 n and value equal empty, that means, remember, this is our database row. If our database row is empty, that means they have not been added yet, meaning they're new. In that case, B40 equals B40. We're going to add our attendees, add these attendees, and A in the attendee row equals M in the attendee row. In other words, we're adding this attendee right here. We're going to add the attendee right here. So we're adding only the attendees that do not, we're adding only the attendees right here that do not have the database row, that do not have N here. So basically only new attendees get added to our names list, and then when we send the email, only those new. Normally we send it to all, but now we're going to check if N is blank, right? When we add a new attendee, N's blank, right? Only this attendee will get added to this. So when we add Lisa, let's add a name that hasn't been added yet, Harold. Okay, so only this attendee is going to get that email. So when we save those changes, only Harold gets the email. Why is that? When we go back and email, only Harold's name got added to that. So because Harold was the only one that didn't have N. So that's what we did. That's what we checked on, and that's why we were able to. It's this, else if N must be empty, B40, these are adds the attendee's name to the attendees, A and the attendee value, so we're going to, and then increases. So only the names here that don't have a database row get added. However, in other cases, all of the other ones, even if they get database. So that is why we're able to separate new from existing attendees. All right, so that's how we were able to create that email. All right, next up we have on our list attendee status change. So in this, if we change the status change, and in this case we say, okay, only if they decline, I want to send an email. I want to send an email if they declined. So back into our meeting schedule, if we change a specific and click declined, and then save those changes, we're going to get an email. That email says Derry, we are sorry you're unable to attend the breakfast. So this email is based on the status only decline. Now let's go ahead and show you how we did that. All right, back into the meeting save and update changes. Let's go ahead and meeting save and update, right? Now here when we scroll down this, we're going to see some additional check for existing status. And if different, and attendee status email is active, then send an email. So we're going to check those two things. Sheet 4, E and attendee route. First of all, we want to make sure that E does not equal empty on sheet 4. And what is that sheet 4? Well, let's take a look at the attendee database. We want to make sure that that actual row, attendee database row, is not empty. So that's important. We've already defined the attendee database row, so we know up here equals n. So we want to make sure that's not empty, because we want to make sure that they have a value there. They have a status there. E is where we hold our status. Let's look at that. Attendee database. E is where we hold the status. So what I want to do is I want to check. I know what the row is. I know what their old status. This is previously when it was saved. Right, so for example, let's take a look at this one back into meeting schedule. Let's say I change Harold Ramos to decline. Okay, that's database row 128, decline. Okay, we haven't saved it yet. So let's look at row 128 in our attendee database. Go down to 128 and we'll see that Harold Ramos, his is tentative, right? So what we're going to be saying is, one is if this declined is different than this tentative, then and we have also checked that this is true, this has to be true, and only on decline. So we're going to check 3 different things. So moving back in, so we're going to say E does not equal empty, and sheet 4E, the status does not equal the current status. What is the current status? We've set that as L and the row. So that sets our status. So the old status cannot equal the new status. That means there has been a change. And sheet 525 must equal true. This means that this is the email that says, yes, I want to send emails when there's a status change. So here we got that here. Next up, I need to know what this status is. Now I need to find the status. We're going to set the found status range as attendee status, and basically all we're doing is we're going to locate that status and then locate it within the database here. So what I want to know is status number 1, status number 2, status number 3. So I want to know if those statuses, if this is true, right? In this case, declined is true, and our status number is 3, right? In other words, I need to know which one of them is true. 1, 2, 3. So in this case it's 3. So if this is 3, and also the third one is true, right? So it's basically just mapping it out. So email it. So again, 1, 2, 3. So both are true, right? That means I don't want to send it out for this. So that's what we're going to check. So basically I run through that, and I use find. I use find here to get the number, find the status row, and it's 90 minus 12. Why minus 90? Let me show you that. That's where our statuses are located as a row. So it's just going to find that row, and in this case it's 90 here, right here. Right here, it's going to find that, and it says I need to get this to be 1, I need this to be true, and I need 2. I need this to be 1, I need this to be 2, and I need this to be 3. So subtracting 90 does that. Then I could say if 1, 2, or 3, and I can compare that with this right here, 1, 2, 3. All right, so that's what I want to do. Basically I want to say, hey, if they want it on decline, then go ahead and send that email. So we're going to compare it. If sheet cells 24 is the row, sheet 5 is email, found row minus 90, so in this case it's 3, right, plus 12, value equals true. Why plus 12? This is row 15, right? So declined is the third one. So 3 plus 12 is 15. So basically it says 24, row 24, column 15. If that is true, then go ahead and send the email. Basically it's mapping out. You can follow it. I know I'm not explaining it as clearly as possible, but I've done so much, we got to move through this. And so, but you can, of course, you can download it and follow it. And I've used comments here so you can see that. So basically, we're just determining if it's true. And if all of those are true, then yes, send the email. In that case, set B30 to 24. That's our email automation row. Sheet 5, A44 equals sheet 4. That is going to set our attendance row. That's going to set our the name of that attendee. 44, and then we're going to send the meeting. So that means just 44. I want to only send one name and send that meeting. That is how we send that. All right, we are way over on time. We've covered the first 5 different triggers. So we're going to cover both send after meeting and send before meeting because I want to take my time on those in next week's training, part 3. And plus we're going to cover some new features, but you can download them as well. And basically what those do is going to create an email log, and then we're going to sort those and send them based on the scheduled time. So thank you very much for joining me. It's been a very long and amazing training, and look forward to having you in part 3. Thanks so much.